Picture this: a crisp autumn morning in the dense woods, where the leaves crunch underfoot like forgotten promises, and the air carries the faint whisper of a stream carving its path through time. That's where our story begins. Not with grand declarations, but with a quiet realization that echoes louder than any shout. You've built something sacred, a retreat from the world's chaos, only to find someone chipping away at its edges without a second thought. It's that subtle shift, the one where appreciation fades into entitlement, that sets the stage for what comes next. In those moments, when the value you once held in someone's eyes dims, the real question isn't why it happened, but what you choose to do about it. Today, we're diving into that very crossroads, Zalosen, blending a true tale of clever resolve with timeless quotes that illuminate the path forward. Because sometimes, the most powerful response isn't a confrontation, it's a revelation. Let's step into the shoes of Alina, a woman in her late 50s who had finally claimed a slice of serenity after decades of putting others first. Elena's life had been a tapestry of sacrifices, raising 2 daughters through financial hardships, supporting her husband until his passing 5 years ago, and even dipping into her savings to help her eldest daughter, Sophia, through college. Now, with her nest empty, Elena invested in a dream she'd harbored for years, a cozy cabin nestled deep in the New England woods. It wasn't lavish. Think rustic logs, a stone fireplace that crackled with warmth, and windows framing views of ancient pines, swaying like silent guardians. This cabin was her sanctuary, a place to recharge, write her memoirs, and host intimate family gatherings on her terms. But dreams, as we know, often attract those who see them as opportunities rather than treasures. Enter Mark, Elena's son-in-law. Married to Sophia for 3 years, Mark was the type who wore charm like a well-tailored suit, confident, ambitious, always networking. At first, Elena admired his drive. He was a marketing executive climbing the corporate ladder, and he treated Sophia well enough. But over time, cracks appeared. Mark began making offhand comments about Elena's generosity, hinting that her resources should extend further. It started small, borrowing her car without asking, then suggesting she babysit their future kids whenever needed. Elena brushed it off, attributing it to youthful entitlement. But the cabin, that was her line in the sand. One evening, over a family dinner at Sophia and Mark's suburban home, Mark dropped the bomb. "Elena, that new cabin of yours sounds amazing. My parents are visiting next month. They're flying in from California. And I was thinking, why not surprise them with a weekend there? It's got plenty of space, right? They'd love the fresh air, and it'd be a great way to bond as a family." His tone was casual, as if he were suggesting a coffee run, not commandeering her private haven. Elena paused, fork midway to her mouth, feeling a familiar twinge, the erosion of her worth in his eyes. She wasn't the matriarch to be respected, she was the convenient provider. Sophia chimed in, "Mom, it'd be fun. Dad would have loved hosting like that." The mention of her late husband stung, but Alina smiled through it. Inside, though, a plan began to form, inspired by a quote from Maya Angelou that had guided her through tougher times. "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." That quote isn't just words, it's a psychological anchor. It reminds us that people's actions reveal their true regard for us far more than their promises. In relationships, whether familial or romantic, devaluation often creeps in subtly. Missed calls, dismissed opinions taken for granted gestures. Psychologists call this emotional discounting, where one party reduces the other's input to background noise. But here's the key: recognizing it early opens the door to reclaiming your power. Elena did just that. Instead of exploding or acquiescing, she nodded agreeably. "Sure, Mark. Let's make it special. I'll prepare a surprise they'll never forget." Her voice was steady, but her mind raced with strategy. This wasn't about revenge, it was about teaching value through experience, a lesson wrapped in the woods. Unforgiving embrace. As Alina drove back to her apartment that night, the city lights blurring into streaks, she reflected on how devaluation manifests. It's not always dramatic betrayals. Often, it's the quiet assumption that your boundaries are flexible. Think about it in your own life. That friend who cancels plans repeatedly. The partner who forgets anniversaries, the colleague who claims your ideas. Each instance chips away at self-worth, triggering what experts term attachment insecurity. Drawing from Attachment Theory by John Bowlby, when our bonds feel undervalued, we oscillate between anxiety and avoidance. But Alana chose neither. She opted for assertive recalibration. She pulled out her notebook and jotted down another guiding quote, this one from Oprah Winfrey. You teach people how to treat you. Simple, yet profound. It's not about changing others. It's about enforcing your standards. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Alina visited the cabin, ensuring everything was in order. But with twists. She stocked the pantry with basics, but added elements that would highlight the cabin's true nature. No Wi-Fi, spotty cell service, and a reliance on nature's rhythm. Mark's parents, from what she knew, were urbanites. His father a retired lawyer accustomed to luxury. His mother a socialite who thrived on brunches and boutiques. The woods, that was Alina's domain, raw and unfiltered. She installed a few surprises. Motion sensor lights that flickered like watchful eyes. A guest book filled with entries about wildlife encounters. And even a subtle sign at the entrance reading, enter at your own pace. But the real surprise, Elena wouldn't be there. She'd bow out gracefully, citing a prior commitment, forcing Mark to host alone. This was her way of saying, without words, if you don't value my space, experience it without my buffer. Building suspense here. Let's pause on Elena's mindset. Why not just say no outright? Because direct confrontation often escalates defensiveness, especially with someone like Mark, who viewed pushback as ingratitude. Instead, by agreeing on the surface while engineering the outcome, Alina created a natural loop, a curiosity gap that would close only when the experience unfolded. This mirrors storytelling techniques in psychology, where unresolved tension keeps us engaged. In your relationships, apply this when devalued. Don't react impulsively. Craft a response that mirrors their disregard back to them. Fostering self-reflection. As Eleanor Roosevelt once said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Elena revoked that consent quietly, powerfully. Fast forward to the weekend in question. Mark, Sophia, and his parents piled into their SUV, excitement buzzing like summer insects. The drive was scenic, winding through foliage ablaze in reds and golds. But as they ventured deeper, the roads narrowed, cell signals faded. Mark's father, Harold, grumbled about the GPS glitching. His mother, Vivian, adjusted her designer scarf, commenting on the quaint isolation. Sophia shot Mark a look, but he shrugged it off. Elena's got it all set up. It'll be great. They arrived at dusk, the cabin looming like a sentinel amid the trees. Unlocking the door, key hidden under a rock as instructed, they stepped inside. The air was cool, scented with pine and faint wood smoke. Cozy, yes, but the surprises began immediately. No remote for the TV. It was an old model, tuned only to static channels. The kitchen had coffee, but the maker was manual, requiring a fire in the stove. And the bedrooms, comfortable, but with thin walls that amplified every rustle outside. As night fell, the woods came alive, owls hooting, branches scraping like fingers on glass. Vivian jumped at a distant howl. Is that a wolf? Mark laughed it off. Probably just a coyote. Mom, in-law says it's part of the charm. But charm turned to challenge when the power flickered. Elena had mentioned the generator, but forgot to fill it fully. They scrambled for flashlights, laughing nervously at first. Harold tried checking emails, only to find no internet. How does Alina stand this? It's like the Stone Age. Sophia, sensing the unease, texted Elena, miraculously getting a bar of signal. Mom, everything okay? Parents are a bit overwhelmed. Elena's reply was swift. Enjoy the surprise! Nature teaches us what's truly valuable. That night, as the group huddled by the fireplace, stories emerged, not polished anecdotes, but raw ones. Mark shared childhood memories. Harold opened up about his regrets in a high-pressure career. Vivian admitted her fear of silence. Without distractions, vulnerabilities surfaced, but tension built. Mark realized he'd underestimated the cabin's demands. Fetching wood, boiling water, it was work, not vacation. By morning, grumbles turned to complaints. This isn't relaxing, it's survival training, Harold muttered. Here's where the psychological depth kicks in. Devaluation often stems from mismatched expectations. Mark saw the cabin as a free perk, not Elena's hard-earned refuge. By exposing them to its realities without her facilitation, Elena forced a reevaluation. This aligns with cognitive dissonance theory by Leon Festinger. When actions clash with beliefs, discomfort prompts change. Mark's belief: Elena's assets were communal. The dissonance: experiencing the effort without her grace. Quotes reinforce this, as Brené Brown notes. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. Elena set that distance masterfully. As the weekend progressed, the surprises compounded. Elena had left a trail map to a nearby waterfall. Beautiful, but a hike over uneven terrain. Vivian twisted her ankle slightly, Harold got muddy, and Mark had to play medic and guide. Sophia, caught in the middle, whispered to Mark, "Mom did warn us it was rustic." Mark's response: a grudging nod. "Yeah, but I thought she'd make it easier." That admission was the crack. Acknowledging Elena's role in smoothing edges he'd ignored. Evening brought a power outage during a storm. Thunder rumbling like judgment. They played board games by candlelight, bonds strengthening amid adversity. But Mark's facade cracked further when his parents confided, "Son, this place is Elena's heart. We shouldn't have imposed." By Sunday, as they packed to leave, the air had shifted. Mark approached Sophia. "I get it now. Your mom's not just generous, she's earned this peace." They drove out, leaves swirling behind like shed illusions. Elena, back home, received a call from Sophia. "Mom, that was intense." Mark's parents loved the authenticity, but Mark, he's talking about respecting boundaries more. Elena smiled. Her surprise wasn't malice. It was a mirror, reflecting back the devaluation so they could see it clearly. This story isn't unique, it's a blueprint. When someone stops valuing you, don't diminish yourself further by begging for recognition. Instead, withdraw the unappreciated elements gracefully, letting the void speak. As Rumi poetically put it, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself." Elena changed her response, prompting others to adjust. Expanding on this, let's explore the psychology behind devaluation. It often roots in familiarity breeding contempt, a proverb backed by research. Studies from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology show that long-term relationships can lead to hedonic adaptation, where positives become expected, negatives amplified. Counter this by reinstating novelty. Change your availability, assert needs. Inspirational value here: self-respect isn't selfish. It's foundational. Without it, relationships crumble. Quotes amplify this wisdom. Take Nelson Mandela. Dalhousie. There is nothing like returning to a place that remains unchanged to find the ways in which you yourself have altered. Elena's cabin remained the same. It was perceptions that shifted. Or Viktor Frankl, between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. Elena chose empowerment. In romantic contexts, devaluation might appear as emotional withdrawal. If your partner dismisses your feelings, respond by prioritizing your growth. Join a class, pursue hobbies. This creates a loop. They notice the change. Curiosity draws them back. Or you realize your worth independently. Educational takeaway: build emotional resilience through mindfulness, as per Jon Kabat-Zinn's teachings. Familial devaluation, like Elena's case, requires nuanced boundaries. Don't cut off, curate interactions. If a relative takes advantage, limit exposure while maintaining love. Psychological benefit: reduces resentment, fosters mutual respect. Professionally, when a boss undervalues your contributions, document achievements, seek feedback loops. As Sheryl Sandberg advises, lean in to your value. Throughout, use suspense in communication. Hint at changes without full disclosure, keeping engagement high. Word count so far building toward our target, but let's deepen with more examples. Wabathi Part 2 now. Building on Elena's triumph, imagine applying this to friendships. A friend who only calls when needing favors. Next time, be unavailable, and share your exciting pursuits later. The surprise: they realize your life doesn't revolve around them. Emotional pull: it hurts to feel undervalued, but reclaiming agency liberates. Inspirational layer: history brims with figures who turned devaluation into fuel. Oprah, devalued in early career, built an empire by believing in herself. Quote, turn your wounds into wisdom. Do the same. Transform pain into personal growth. Psychologically, this ties to self-determination theory by Deci and Ryan. Autonomy, competence, relatedness. When devalued, restore autonomy by setting terms. Story extension post-weekend. Mark surprised Alina with a thank you note and an offer to help maintain the cabin. Boundaries set, value restored. For viewers facing this, steps 1. Identify signs, consistent disregard. 2. Reflect on your role. Have you enabled it? 3. Plan the surprise. Withdraw perks subtly. 4. Observe outcomes. 5. Adjust as needed. Quotes gallery. Confucius. Respect yourself and others will respect you. Audrey Hepburn. As you grow older, you will discover that you have two hands, one for helping yourself, the other for helping others. Balance both. Educational depth. Neuroscience shows boundary setting releases dopamine, reinforcing positive behavior. Inspirational. Close. You deserve value. When it's withdrawn, don't chase. Illuminate your worth through action. Conclusion. Elena's cabin stands as a metaphor. Your life is your sanctuary. Guard it wisely. As you navigate relationships, remember, the greatest surprise is rediscovering your own value. Feel that reward. That's the end of Devaluation's hold. Thank you for joining. Apply this and watch transformations unfold. Diving deeper into the ripple effects of Elena's choice, let's zoom out and see how this single act reshaped the family dynamic in ways no one anticipated. Mark returned from the woods, not just humbled, but introspective, a shift that started small but grew like vines reclaiming an old fence. He began calling Alina not for favors, but for genuine check-ins, asking about her writing or sharing articles on cabin renovations he'd researched himself. Sophia noticed it first, whispering to her mom over coffee one afternoon, "He's different, Mom. Like he finally sees you." That transformation wasn't magic. It was the natural outcome of enforced reflection. When someone assumes your value is negotiable, removing the ease they took for granted creates a vacuum that pulls truth to the surface. Psychologists refer to this as reality testing, where imposed discomfort strips away illusions, forcing alignment with facts. In Alina's case, the woods did the talking, their untamed essence mirroring the wild boundaries of self-respect. This brings us to a broader exploration: how devaluation sneaks into various corners of life, and why responding with strategic withdrawal works wonders. Consider the workplace, an arena ripe for such dynamics. Imagine you're the reliable team member always picking up slack, staying late, covering shifts, only to watch promotions slip to flashier colleagues. Your boss nods appreciatively in meetings, but come review time, your efforts blend into the wallpaper. It's demoralizing, eroding confidence like waves on a shore. But here's the pivot. Instead of pleading for recognition, orchestrate a subtle surprise. Take on a high visibility project outside your usual scope, or politely decline extra tasks with a phrase like, "I'd love to, but my plate's focused on these priorities right now." The suspense builds as deadlines approach without your usual bailout. Colleagues scramble. Your absence highlights your contributions, and suddenly, value resurfaces. As Warren Buffett wisely put it, price is what you pay. Value is what you get. By making them feel the cost of your undervaluation, you redefine the exchange. Emotionally, this tactic tugs at universal strings. We've all felt invisible at some point. That ache of pouring energy into a void. But turning it inspirational, it's your cue to invest inward. Studies from positive psychology, pioneered by Martin Seligman, show that focusing on personal strengths during adversity builds resilience. Alina did this post-surprise. She journaled about her victories, turning the incident into memoir chapters that celebrated her autonomy. Viewers, take note, keep a value ledger. Jot down instances where you're appreciated versus dismissed. Patterns emerge, guiding decisions. If a relationship tips toward the latter, withdraw selectively. Limit time, share less vulnerably. The psychological loop closes when they reach out, curious about your newfound distance, or when you thrive solo, proving self-worth isn't external. Now, let's weave in romance, where devaluation can cut deepest. Picture a partner who once hung on your every word, now scrolling through their phone mid-conversation, plans made without your input. It's a slow fade, leaving you questioning your appeal, reacting with anger, It backfires, breeding resentment. Instead, channel Elena's Woods' wisdom. Prepare your own surprise. Plan a solo weekend getaway, or immerse in hobbies that light you up. Painting classes, hiking groups, whatever sparks joy. Share glimpses on social media or in casual chats, not as bait, but as authentic living. The natural suspense. They notice the shift, wondering what changed. As Esther Perel, relationship expert, observes in her talks on desire, distance creates longing. This isn't manipulation. It's reclaiming space, echoing the quote from Anais Nin. Love never dies a natural death. It dies because we don't know how to replenish its source. Replenish yours first, and watch if they follow suit or fade, freeing you for better matches.